At the top of the program, we mentioned bromatology. You and I practice it pretty much every day to varying degrees. It's the study of food, but it's much more than what's for supper. We asked food scientist Manfred Kroger to give us the complete breakdown.
Food science is a very complicated field, very difficult to define even. Religion, mathematics, physics is easy to define. Food science draws on microbiology, on chemistry, on the agricultural sciences. There's physiology, which is nutrition. There's dietetics, which is what you do with the food eventually. There's geography and economics. How much do you pay and where does the food come from? So it's a very syncretic, eclectic field. And food science at Penn State came out of agriculture, came out of dairy husbandry, as dairy science was called in those days. And in 1975, the Board of Trustees at Penn State created a Department of Food Science. So we are in existence since that time.
It's kind of easy to understand the importance of food science if you consider the fact that in the 21st century, we're going to see the world population double to 12 billion.
Yes. And food science is different from food technology, and we can get into an argument about this. And scientists want to learn the laws of nature, why things happen. They want to observe what is in food, what changes in food, how does food spoil. A technologist uses the tools of science. A chef is a good technologist. They don't understand chemistry as much as a chemist does, but they do a very good job because they're good technologists. They're using the tools of science to create something very good or to prevent food from spoiling. And the scientist explains it all. And in order for a food scientist to work, we have to do research. We have to do investigations. And that is the very nature of progress, the very nature of a university, to study things, stuff, and what surrounds us. And there's nothing more important in our environment than food, which becomes us, which goes into us. We could study the air, the water, but food, from my standpoint, is the most important thing.
Now, if you talk about the pioneers in this food science, you can't skip the name William Freer, who is responsible, really, I guess, for the way we look at food safety today. Tell us about him and about some of the other pioneers in this field.
Yes, I consider William Freer the first food scientist at Penn State. And in my profession, the Institute of Food Technologists, they have written a few books about the pioneers in food science, and they didn't know about William Freer. And I would like to rectify this and bring him into the heights, or into this Mount Olympus of a great people. He was born in 1860 in Reading. He died in 1922 at Penn State as a 62-year-old professor, not yet retired. He brought up a family of 4, and I'm actually corresponding with one of his granddaughters who has a son who may want to become a food chemist, and I'm trying to get him here to Penn State. And William Freer, as a 22-year-old man with a degree from Wesleyan University, BS from Bucknell, and then Wesleyan, he came here as a 22-year-old man after he had worked for Harvey Wiley in Washington, who became the father of the American food law. And William Freer left a fantastic stamp on agricultural research. He began food research by analyzing whatever grew on this farm of 200 acres, which was the inner circle or the inner campus. Everything that grew was being analyzed. They did fantastic experiments on fertilization. What fertilizer is good for what crop? And he also studied the weather in town. He was a forerunner of AccuWeather in a way. He studied barbed wire. He did a lot of tobacco research. It was a big crop, especially around Lancaster, and we had an experimental farm there. And he studied milk also by taking it apart, and all this was done at this whole university by Freer and 2-3 helpers, while there were only about 200 students in agriculture.
And of course, Freer and so many other things will be discussed in your new book, which we're anxious to see.
I have a chapter for William Freer, who is not related. And this was a mistake I made. D.E.H. Freer was one of my professors, agricultural chemist, pesticide expert. I thought he was one of his sons. And I made a mistake, and this little article was published, and William Freer's granddaughter called me and said, "You made a mistake in your article. D.H. Freer is not related to William Freer. Please correct it." And it will be corrected in my book.
All right. Thanks so much. It's been nice talking with you.
I'm glad to be here.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.